calling this meeting to order. Tuesday, February 26th. It is 6:40 p.m. Welcome everyone to this lovely library. I hope it makes you feel young again. That was the whole point. All right, so just a couple reminders for everybody, and then for anybody who's new. This is our regular session meeting for the month. Please, if you want to speak during open forum, which will be at the end of the meeting, you need to fill out the slips that should be back there on your sign-in table. Once you have it filled out, you can, well, it's going to be a little bit of weaving, but you can get it to Jennifer Fisher. Can you raise your hand, Jennifer, so people, right there. She will mark them in order of when they were handed in. That puts you in line basically and holds your space. When we get to that portion of the meeting, you'll have 3 minutes to talk on the item. And that can be any issue you want, not just something that was on the agenda. The board will likely not provide a response, but it's always possible. And then we also ask that you turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate so that they don't go off. Please be respectful and refrain from side conversations and speaking out of turn. Everyone will have an opportunity, should you choose to provide input on each item on our agenda. After we go over it as a board, we'll turn to you. You'll have 2 minutes on that specific agenda item. We do ask that you stick to the agenda item. If you go off topic, we'll ask that you wait and use that during open forum. This is our monthly meeting, so we'll have our monthly updates from the management team and our landscape vendors. They will not be taking questions, maybe a couple from the board, but not from the audience. If you have a question for them, that needs to be done during open forum at the end of the meeting. I believe that is everything. So one little announcement. You'll see there's 6 of us. Jack Rudy has officially resigned, so he is no longer on the board. We would like to thank him for his time and effort over the last 2 years, yeah. And that, again, we are all volunteers, so we appreciate his time volunteering for the community in that way. So if you see him, thank him for his service, please. But he will not be with us, and then we will not be going out to fill his position, as he is one of the positions that's open anyways, so anybody who's running could have gotten that spot anyways. So by the time we have interviews and do all that, it'd be election time. So that sums up that. What we need at this time, we will review and approve the meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion for the January 22nd meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the January 22nd meeting minutes as presented to the board.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion by the board? All right, seeing none. Any homeowner questions, concerns on that item? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carries 6-0. February 12th.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the February 12th work session meeting minutes as presented to the board.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion, board? All right, homeowners? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, motion carries 6-0. Treasurer's financial report, for those that aren't usually here, Tim will go over the report. After he goes over the report, the board will motion to accept. And then after we've had any discussion that we may have, then we'll turn it out to you guys, just so you don't think he skipped it. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, you have 2 sheets in front of you. The first is December 31st, 2018, and as I discussed in the last meeting, we needed to reclassify the tree trimming from an operation to a reserve expense, and that's the only change we made. So you'll see that the landscape went down by $147,000, and the reserve expense at the very bottom there for the month was $147,000. So that's the only change to that. I'm not going to go over the detail that I went over last month. Moving to January 31st, which you should have. January 31st sheet. I'll go through it. Our operating cash was $3.332 million. It was $492,000 up from last month. And again, it's the typical quarterly billing cycle that we're on, where we see the bump up at the beginning of each quarter as we're giving cash, and then peel it off as we go through the quarter. The capital improvement fund is $306,000, $127 up, and that's purely interest. The reserve funds, we have 3 reserve funds. The master reserve fund is 3,597, which is down $80,000. The Lakeview is $137,000, and the Stonegate is $477,000. So that's those are the cash situation, balance sheet. I'm going to jump down to all the way down to the graph, accounts receivable. What you can see that compared to last year, remember that was the beginning cycle of the receivables where we were transitioning through with first service. It was very high, and you can see the red this year. It again will be like every first quarter as it was after we got by the first quarter of last year. It'll start out high and then go down each month. So we're continuing to trend as we have in the past. In terms of income, our income was $374,000, and that was $5,891 under budget. And the reason that was under budget is working capital. We resold fewer houses than was in the budget. Both our rebill and late fees were less than budget, which is good news. I mean, people are paying on time. And that was offset partially by our violations, which was higher than budget by $6,675, and interest. We're continuing to have our interest greater than budget. In terms of expenses, I'll go down line by line. Administrative expenses were $113,777, which was $12,641 over budget. I'm sorry, not over budget. Yeah, over budget. Better than budget. And that's due to, over budget. That was due to printing costs. That's the quarterly printing costs and postage. The scan fee that we paid for the documents that we scanned from the electronic documents. We got rid of the 40 some odd cabinets. The on-site staff, just accumulation of their salaries, offset by social events, which were less than expected, bad debt, and rebill and lien fees. The next one is utilities, and that was over budget, greater than budget, by $6,586, and that was due to 2 areas. One is our favorite, which is water, which was $8,491 over budget, and gas, which was under budget. The next category is landscaping. We were under budget by $18,760, and that's due to the fact that we haven't settled on the erosion project yet, so we haven't spent any money yet in 2019 on progressing on the erosion project. Did no plant replacements. That'll be done more on a cyclical basis, and we had no specific landscape extras for the month. The next category is the pools, which was under budget, better than budget, by $883, and that's due to the fact that we had no pool repairs for the month identified, and the supplies, thank goodness, were less than budget. Last year we're running higher than budget on supplies. For this month, they were less than budget. Let's see. The next one I'll jump down to is the common area. Common area was $92,834, which was $22,839 under budget, and that's basically due to two areas. One is we didn't spend anything this month on any capital improvement projects, and we are going to do a reclassification. Right now, the wall inspection shows that it was favorable. We're going to reclassify that, and it'll turn out that the contingency for the month will be favorable. And the reserve, we had no expenses in the reserve fund for the month.
All right. So I'll need a motion to approve the change, or accept the December change, and then we'll do a separate one for January.
Yep. Make a motion to accept the change for the ending December 31st, 2018 financials.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions from the board, discussion on that? All right, anything from the homeowners? Yes.
I've been here for about a year, some issues, but last time I was here, I noted that your operating cash I thought was excessive. Because your operating cash, just to make it rough, every quarter you're spending a little less than $1 million. You got $3 million sitting in your operating cash, and it gets replenished. So according to my calculations, you're sitting with somewhere around $2 million excess money in operating cash. Is that correct?
Our policy.
No, I don't want your policies. I want to know what. Is that correct?
No.
So you don't have $2 million there?
Well, if you let me explain, Brian, if you let me explain, it's not a yes and no answer. Okay, the answer is that our policy for the board is to keep 3 months of cash available in the operating fund, and that's roughly a little over $1 million. Okay. There is some excess money that is a rollover from last year, and what we will do is we do every year is we'll do after year end we do a true up to say how much money is not needed in order to meet our current operating fund. When we have that, I'll tell you what the number is.
So what do you do with that money?
That money, what we do is there are multiple choices. We can put it into the capital improvement fund for future use. We can put it into the reserve fund for future use. We can give it back to the homeowners. There could be other alternatives, but those are the three that we have looked at in the past.
Okay, just a follow-up question, if I may, is that
Quickly.
The goal is to have the reserve funded to 70%, is that correct?
Minimum, at least 70%.
Well,
Ideally 100, but yes, at
Yes.
least 70.
The minimum the policy the board has established is 70%.
What is the funding of the reserve at the moment?
And I haven't done the calculation. It was supposed to be about 68. I haven't done the calculation for at year end yet.
So my other question would be, it would seem to me to be appropriate, this is a statement rather than a question, that every month we should have a handle on what percentage of the reserve is funded. Because it seems to me, I asked this question last year too, the board really has two important functions. One is to keep the place in shipshape, that's your operating expense. And the second is to ensure that capital is replaced. So those are the two most important numbers to homeowners, I would think. At least that would be my opinion on that.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
will we get that number in the future?
You know, as soon as we're done with year end, we'll have it.
Like, it would certainly do it at year end.
No, on a monthly basis, get the percentage of the reserve is fully funded, the percentage funded, so we can see how the reserve is going up
Take-
or down.
We'll look into it.
Take it into consideration.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
This is not gonna change that month to
Yeah,
month.
I mean, it
Month to
doesn't
month,
vary
it's not gonna
very
change.
much.
I mean, we put a planned amount of budgeted money in every month. It's not gonna change in terms of a significant change in terms of percent one way or the other in 1 month. You need to look at it over a period of time.
And right now, we're in the process of going out to have a new reserve study done as well. So that may change things as well. But we will look into, our only meeting in March is the second Tuesday, and we'll see if we can have a number for you. So,
Okay.
No.
well, we have the annual member meeting, but
We haven't done an end of the
We
year yet.
haven't done an ND.
well, we should have at least some idea. We can see what we will come up, what we can do. I'm making no promises. We will see what we can do in our next meeting. But we need to stick to the December financials as presented, and that was only one change. So do you have a question on that specific change?
I don't have any budget, but I just know that, can people call in and listen because someone's telling them that they
No.
can't? No. Not anymore?
No, that doesn't work.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
yep. All right. Any other questions on the specific December revision? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, motion carries 6-0. I need a motion to accept.
Yep, go in there. Motion to accept the January 2019 financials as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, board, any discussion on the January financials? Okay, anything on the January specific? Deb?
You might want to make a correction to the accounts receivable trending. The key, the colors are screwed up. I had it circled. Thank you.
Yes, she does, yeah.
Backwards.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, motion carries 6-0. Okay, now on to vendor updates. Gothic, you are up. Trevor, Chad, or what were we calling them now? I can't repeat. We combined the names on accident, so that's your new name, right? Travis, I don't know, it was funny.
Brad?
Okay, Brad.
We have a mic, or do we can?
Yeah, so take this one. Go off.
All right, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Perfect. Okay, so some of the things that we are working on. January is fortunately a little bit of a quieter month for landscape. It was extremely cold January, especially going into February, so we did have a prolonged time frame of freezing. So what you probably still noticed around the community, which we did mention last meeting as well, is the frost damage. Typically, we would start trimming that stuff back by now, but with the freezes we had even as early as, or even as late as last week, we postponed that, and we think we're in the clear this week. So this week, next week, going forward, you'll start to see that frost damage get pruned away, and we've got another slide that'll kind of show you, let everybody know exactly what we're going to end up doing cutbacks on. Can you scoot back 1 second for me? Oh, it was the same age. Good job. So biggest thing, weeds. Again, with the rain we've had an unusual amount of rain, continual. Along with the cold weather, weeds are still popping all over the place. We've had our spray crews in full effect out everywhere. During rain time frames, we have also had irrigation techs helping out, Chad helping out. We've sent additional crews that are not specific to Johnson Ranch down as well. One thing to keep in mind, with the colder weather, the weeds do take longer to die. So in the summer, if we spray something, you could literally see it to start to die within 24 hours or less. In the winter, when it's cold, the weed is kind of like a plant. It closes up a little bit. So the kill time is a little bit longer, but we do have our schedule that we're working on and getting through the community as quick as possible. Give you back for 2 seconds, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Perfect. Good with that. So we can just scroll through some pictures real quick. Just some of the overseeded areas. Lakeview, we've done a lot of work on that pool, and we have got grass coming in pretty well there. We've been able to mow it. Going to do a couple more things to touch it up, but we've got things where we need as far as that goes. Same thing, it's just landscape pictures. Everybody sees the community. A couple special projects that we just completed. Again, with winter being a little bit quieter, we were able to add some granite around Indigo Sky Pool where there was grass at one point. We cleaned out some of the culverts over at the pitch and putt course, and then we did riprap wash clean outs along Indigo Sky. Yeah, Indigo Sky. So cutbacks, you'll start to see going forward for probably the next 6 weeks or so, some pretty dramatic changes in some of the plants. So this is our schedule for rejuvenating pruning, and what that really does is it takes the plant all the way to the ground, essentially about 12 to 18 inches down, and it allows it, just like it says, to rejuvenate and start a brand new plant. When you trim plants consistently, they start to get woody die. It's not good for the health. So there is a pretty quick shock to the way the community looks when you bring those down, but within less than a month, they start to grow back like a brand new plant, something that was just installed. You'll get better blooms, better color, and just better overall health. So bougainvilleas are one of the ones we're going to work on. The deer grasses will be cut kind of like a flat top, any of those grasses. Valentine bushes, which are the ones blooming right now with the little pinkish to reddish flower. Those are on our schedule, as well as lantanas. Typically for cassias, we wait until end of March, April, because we want to let those yellow blooms cycle through before we do that. But again, we're jumping on that now that the weather's cooperating extremely fast. Just for the board and community's knowledge, just the irrigation repairs that were done throughout the month. Staffing report, same thing, just an informational purpose when we were here. So tree removals. So I know this has been an exciting thing for everybody. The tree removals have been approved, and we have already begun the removal process. If you drive by Pathfinder Park, you'll already see a huge difference there. We're anticipating it'll probably take 2 to 3 weeks to get through the entire community, and quicker if we can do it. And then granite poly, those have all been ongoing discussions. Some other things we're working on kind of behind the scenes is, along with the master plan, to work on curbing cleanup, any safety hazards. The erosion project we're underway with. We've got everything prioritized already as far as severity, and hopefully by the next work session we'll have something ready to present to the board as far as that goes, so we can get that project moving along. And there's, some proposals we've been working on with the management company that have been approved, a few plant replacements that will be done, and then we're working on a master plant replacement as well for the entire community for the warmer weather to get some color back into the community. I think I just covered most of that. Yeah. Perfect. Any questions from you guys?
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, management update.
Yeah.
So just a brief summary of what was completed, some of the big items in January. The catch and release pond, all the benches have been installed. So we installed 9 new benches with backing over there. We also had a water supply issue with the catch and release pond. We have a well that the riser pipe had holes in it, so they had to replace that. So we went about a week and a half without water fill at the pond, but they resolved that issue in a timely manner. We also began installing all the, PMing all the ball washers at the at the pitch and putt course. So we're going through, we're painting all the ball washers, we're painting all the posts, and getting everything done. As you all know, there's the white fence throughout the property. That's another ongoing issue. That's going to be monthly. We also refurbished the bench over there at the tennis pickleball court. We also installed 2 tennis nets, and we also did order 2 more volleyball nets. We plan on, hopefully in the next 30 days, refurbishing both volleyball courts. We'll be repainting the posts, getting all the rust, fresh paint on it, and then put the newer volleyball nets on there as well. I also looked into, of course, everyone knows about the backflow issue. I looked into plastic backflows, and that is on order, and hopefully it's in this week. I'll try to get it installed no later than mid next week. It'd be great. So just one last thing. For those of you who do use aquatic facilities, we will be closing Stardust this Thursday for some maintenance. Aztec Pools will be performing some maintenance tasks there, and while they're in the midst of that pool closure, we're going to power wash your deck and change out the water in the spa as well. And we'll be reopened first thing Friday morning.
So notice will go out to the community, correct, about Stardust closure?
Correct, yeah, we did send a blast out on Monday.
I also noticed that you said that you began researching vendors for the basketball court refurbishment.
Oh, yes.
You missed that.
Yes, so we did have the same company that came out and looked at that we're actually refurbished our tennis courts and came out to look at our basketball court. He had yet to get back with me with a bid.
Okay.
So this time on the community overview, what I did was I left last month's number there so you could see a comparison. So the first number represents last month, and then the new one represents this. So for the customer care center, you can see we went from 244 to 255 calls, work orders. I don't think I need to go through each one of these individually, but maybe to point out the design review. You see a major increase in applications that the design review committee has been reviewing. Mark, you can go ahead. And then compliance too, that's quite a number there for the first notices. We went from 275 last month to 579 this, and continue with the second notices from 47 to 109 this month, and a little bit down on the parking issued, and also the violations, but that's good because it typically means that people are compliant, which is perfect. So behind the scenes, the annual membership meeting update, we always like to try to let you know where we're at on that. Voting open today, so if you have not received your email that gives instructions on how to do that, make sure to give our office a call. But there's several ways that you can vote. You can even vote the night of the meeting if you want. If you know a homeowner who's homebound and needs a ballot mailed to them, we're happy to assist that way as well. Obviously, the easiest way is online. It's very simple. We've already had some people vote, and they were mentioning the simplicity of it. We had Meet the Candidates last night. Thank you to the candidates that showed. I thought everyone did a great job. It was a really good evening. And we've got our voting signs out. If you happen to notice a place where you think would be another good one to add, let us know. We want to make sure that we have good exposure for that. We will continue to send pushes to the community. What we like to do is we like to let the community know where we're at with quorum, because we need 607 to meet quorum. Last year we did fine, we had over 1,000 votes. We'd like to break that number again. So we find that it's helpful if every now and then we let the community know, hey, we're at 435 and we need a few more to meet quorum. So we'll do that again this year and remind people. And the way it works, and I'll go into more detail on that at a later date, but once someone has voted, they are removed from the push list, and so it's only those particular emails that have not voted that will get a weekly push as a reminder to vote. The wall audit update, we've completed the golf course lots. Along the lines of that, we do have a scope of work, but because of the length of time it's going to take to actually create that and find vendors, hoping to present something to the board in April on that. And then we're on target still for our June, July completion for the entire wall audit. And I know that that's just going to be a really important mark to make, because then we're going to be able to determine what we're looking at for the expense for repairing your common area walls. Granite and poly to PVC, Trevor touched on that a little bit. What I'm doing behind the scenes is working with all the vendors to make sure that we're pulling all the questions together, the follow-up questions the board had. Reserve study updates, same thing. We're hoping that both of these are ready to present in our March work session. And then, of course, Trevor also mentioned tree removal project is in process. We're excited about that. Erosion, we are hoping also in the March work session. Trevor's done a lot of work in the background for us in determining how many areas, 100 and... There's around 100 areas. Yeah, there's a lot. And we're categorizing them mild, moderate, and severe. And then we're putting a plan together that we're going to present to the board. And of course, the board will have to make a decision how we're going to move forward with the repairs. Of course, we want to start with severe, especially be prepared for monsoons. And then town hall is Tuesday, March 5th, 7 p.m. It's going to be a little bit of a different evening. We're going to be working on answering some questions the community has, and looking to get a push out on that tomorrow to the community to give you some topics that will be discussed in that meeting. So we hope to see you all Tuesday the 5th at our town hall meeting, and it is at Central Arizona College. Go ahead. I want to go ahead and put this up board because we don't really touch on our annual calendar, but it's good because on occasion we'll think of something that should be added. For instance, we were talking with landscaping, making sure that we want to put in the month that certain trees are going to be trimmed, etc. But for March coming up, you can just take a look and see the calendar. We've added lifestyle as well, so that you have an idea of the activities coming up. Important to note, the 25th of March, I believe 11:59 p.m. voting closes. 11:59 p.m. voting will close, and we'll make sure that homeowners are very aware of that. We'll keep everybody up to date of how much time they have to vote. And then our annual membership meeting is the night of the 26th. Check-in is at 6 p.m. and the meeting will start at 6:30. It's also at Central Arizona College.
So you just need to change the calendar that you're displaying because it says 26 voting closes. Second to bottom line, should be 25.
What does it say? Oh, I changed it up there, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's changed and it will be changed moving forward. I've got 25th there and 26th. I caught that before. Okay. And then lastly, just real quick on lifestyle, we had 2 in January, food truck night and crafty corner. Valentine's card making class, so there were 315 in participation between those 2 events. Roger, I don't think Cam is here tonight. Did you want to do a quick update on what we did in the last strategic?
I didn't bring my copy of what we came up with, so if you have a
Well,
copy, does Jennifer have a copy of that?
We weren't actually going to read it, just maybe the process of where we're at right now, because we're not ready to share it with the community yet.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't gotten it yet from what our final thing was. We went around with stuff from our previous meeting and came up with what we wanted to do for the future and stuff, and I had a really good discussion and broke down into groups, came up with 2 different things. We ended up melding it, and I think we're all pretty happy with what we came up with, and unfortunately we don't have it yet to bring out to that, because we need to bring it to the board first and have them rattle around with it. So, but so far it's moving along quite well, and I think we're on track for where we need to be. Basically, we're looking at trying to make sure that the community spends the money the way it's supposed to. There's wording to the effect that budget items, et cetera, is to be a priority, as well as looking to the future with that kind of budget item, type of thing. That's where we're at with it right now, anyway. Is that good for you?
Thank you, Roger. That's good. Thank you, Roger.
Just a little bit of clarification. The work product he was discussing is the mission statement.
Okay.
And we had a few members that couldn't make the meeting, so we're going to address it again at our next meeting so that we have consensus before bringing it to the board. And then we have some other information gathering that the task members are taking part in. So, and then we'll meet again in March. So. All right, moving on to old business. Item A, we have the community business continuity plan, Bob being our subject matter expert on that one, put that together, and then Michelle contributed some input, and then the board addressed it at the last meeting that I wasn't at, and vetted it some more. And we are ready for a vote if we can get a motion, so.
Make a motion that we accept the community continuity plan, okay, emphasis on syllable, that represents for management and for homeowners.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so now there's discussion. Why don't you start, because it's kind of your baby, and then we'll move down the line.
Okay. Both plans have been completed. The last minor items that we wanted to go over, the board wanted to go over, have been incorporated into the updated plan. I've also attached for the board, and I think you saw that earlier, the spreadsheet on selected items we may have to consider if we ever have an event down in this area, along with recommended vendors to help us out with immediate contracts. We don't have to take any action on any purchases. We don't have to worry about any of those items that were mentioned in that spreadsheet. Those are items for consideration only as we go down the road. With the plans done, as long as I'm on the board, and I'll turn it over to everybody else if I'm not on after the next year's elections, I'll be continuing to update and review this every 6 months to ensure we're up to date. We are coming into fire season, and shortly after fire comes the flooding season. And although we're in a minimal area to be affected, we can still be affected thanks to our neighboring mountains. And that's where we're at as of right now. And I thank Michelle for the help on a lot of the things we did together on that.
Tim, do you have any?
No, the questions were all answered, and I think it looks fine. It's a good product.
Michelle?
Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit of background. I like it just so that homeowners, the people that haven't been in meetings before or kind of don't know what we're talking about, this emergency response plan, there's one for management and then there's going to be one for homeowners. And basically what it is if something happens, what do you do? It just helps them so that you don't have to think when all of a sudden a hurricane's coming through. They can open up the book and say, oh, okay, this is what I do. There's one for homeowners, and it just gives you some things to think of. Obviously, nothing is mandatory in here, but it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of, well, what's the phone number for Red Cross? What should I pack in a go bag? Things like sturdy shoes, a cell phone, credit cards. So it just gives you some things to think about, so that if something is going to be happening, again, just hopefully a helpful little reference guide for you. My understanding is these will be electronic. You can download it and print it on out. And I think it is great. Thank you, Bob, for fantastic subject matter expert. All I did was edit.
That was one vocacious effort.
Yeah, I've read through several of the first rough drafts, and it's come a long way, but it's solid. And I know this was something that we talked about doing before either of us had even gotten onto the board, and Michelle had brought it up, and Bob was like, yep, I know how to do that. So we utilized your expertise, and thank you very much for all of that.
Michelle said I knew how to do it.
Yeah. It worked. You got voluntold. It's
Yes.
cool. And so now we have something that I think is very professional and is going to be really helpful. Hopefully that we will never need. That's the goal, right? To never need it, but be prepared. So yes, thank you for your time and efforts on that. Allison, do you have anything on that? Okay, Conan? All right. Okay, homeowners, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Charlie?
When will this be released?
How quickly can you do
I'm
that?
trying to get it out tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving this, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries 6-0. Okay, item B, this is information only. We won't be taking action this evening, but we have some new information from the attorney. Robin, do you want to cover it, or do you just want me to read this? Just read this. Okay. Your explanation. All right, well, basically, so those of you who live in Sterling and Equestrian should have by now gotten a letter explaining about the CCNRs. For whatever reason, they had not been enforced correctly for many years. But upon our new management company's new set of eyes, they determined that there was an issue. So they brought it to the board's attention. We told them, yes, absolutely, legally we have to enforce the CCNRs, so that's what we need to do. And so as a result, we issued that letter to let everybody know whether they were already in compliance or not. Everyone got one just to give them that background information. We have now found and are researching further that there might be a process for residents of Sterling and Equestrian where they can come together. They would need 75% approval from the homeowners that own only in Sterling and Equestrian. So if you don't live there, none of this applies to you. But if you do, they're separate tracts. And so 75% of approval from the homeowners within those tracts could, through whatever process, and that's what we're still trying to get the information about, change the requirement pertaining to RVs and how they have to be stored and that they can't be visible on the property, etc. So
It does need to be Sterling 75, Equestrian 75.
So yeah, Robin will.
Yes, they are individual tracts, and so basically there would be a consent form, and that's how it would be determined, the percentage, 75% of either one of those tracts. This is attorney made it very clear, this is a board decision as to whether or not you would like to see some information, see what an amendment would be to the documents, what that would look like. It could be presented to the board. Comes from, and then the attorney would draft the amendment to those tracts. And then, of course, in order for the change to happen, it would require the 75% of each tract.
So I've got a question, or is that not
So-
right yet?
Well, yeah. Okay, so 75%. So in theory, if we were to go forward with this, Equestrian could approve and Sterling could not approve? Is that, because you're saying you have to, they're separate entities, they're not just one combined, okay. So yeah, so at this point, they don't need really anything from us other than direction as to whether or not we want her to research further what to do.
My question is, first of all, before we go that way, is what sort of feedback are we getting from those tract community people about this? Like, if there are 50 houses in each, let's just make it an easy number. Are we getting 40 people calling in saying, hey, we want to do some amendments and we've got problems with what happened, etc.? Or have we just got one person who wants this? Do we have a feel for it?
Yeah, actually, it's from both sides. So the first side is we've probably only had maybe 3 to 5 that have had a problem with the letter that went out in wanting to park their RV there because they say they bought it, realtor told them they could. The other part is the homeowners who have done what they were supposed to do per documents, frustrated that they complied. And, in talking to, obviously, laws, rules, things change. So it's